Welcome to the Season 1 recap of The Santa Clauses. In 2022, 28 years have passed since Scott Calvin took on the role of Santa Claus. While doing his rounds with his assistant Elf Noel, Scott's magic falters, causing the reindeer to go off course, resulting in them landing back to the North Pole. Meanwhile, Scott's wife Carol eavesdrops on her children, Buddy Cal and Sandra, the former of who is playing virtual reality. Sandra notes that growing up at the North Pole, she hasn't had any friends and notes how Mrs. Claus is perceived. Meanwhile, Simon, a head executive at Everything Now, is trying to balance life as a single father of his daughter Grace after his wife died. Scott returns and learns he is losing weight, causing him to start gaining weight. The following year, as he is doing his rounds, he falls off a roof, leading to Carol being worried as Betty, Noel's wife and head elf, is worried about Scott. Grace confronts Simon about his beliefs about Santa, but he explains he doesn't know if he is real. Betty informs Scott of yet another clause called the Successes Clause, which would allow Scott to retire as Santa once he chooses a worthy successor. Scott initially considers his son for the role, but Charlie turns him down as he is happily married with a family of his own, and Cal expresses a desire to see the real world. Meanwhile, Simon tries to get investors for his business to improve his delivery system, but it backfires when one of his automated drones malfunctions. Returning home, Simon and Grace find the living room decorated for Christmas just before the elves come to take them to the North Pole. Scott meets with potential candidates for Santa Claus, while Carol and Cal look forward to life outside the pole, though Sandra, however, is reluctant to leave. While Scott meets with Simon, Sandra takes Grace on a tour of the pole and discovers she can understand animals. She and Grace go to the Wobbly Woods to meet with Befana, the Christmas witch. Scott and Simon go looking for them and bond over their mutual struggles as fathers. Scott decides to make Simon the new Santa Claus as he and his family depart for Chicago. The Calvin family starts adapting to life in the real world. Carol is offered a job running a local school, Cal becomes smitten with the girl, and Sandra makes friends by joining an equestrian club. At the North Pole, Simon's first day as Santa is off to a rocky start as he has lost the Santa coat and then decides to launch a new campaign called Christmas Every Day, which massively backfires by lowering the Christmas spirit and causing the elves to start disappearing, worrying Betty, whom Simon fires after she begins questioning him. Betty visits Befana in search of an old friend only to find the Santa coat. Bernard appears before Scott and tells him he needs to return to his role as Santa, who reveals that all previous Santas were ethereal and Scott was chosen to become Santa because of his giving spirit as a child. The Clauses were created to help guide him in his endeavors. Learning of Simon's campaign, Scott returns to the North Pole much to his family's concern. When they realize what is going on, they decide to follow. At the North Pole, Scott is locked up by Simon. After breaking out, Scott reunites with his family, who split up when they learn that the Santa coat is searching for him. Unfortunately, Simon beats them to it and threatens to burn the coat but is stopped by Grace. Showing her father a snow globe containing memories of her last Christmas with her late mother, Simon comes to his senses and apologizes to Grace for everything. Re-embracing the Christmas spirit with his family, Scott returns to the role of Santa and the elves return. After returning the chalk seas and wiping their memories, Scott and his family set out to deliver presents. Returning home, Scott and his family celebrate, more than ready to prepare for next year. Thank you for watching the recap, and if you liked it, then please give a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel.